If your creative push has helped you, you can help out the show by shopping on Amazon.com. All you have to do is head to yourcreativepush.com/Amazon. That will take you right there and you can shop how you normally would. A small percentage of your purchases will go directly to helping cover the costs of creating, hosting, and maintaining your creative push. And you can make a big difference just by buying the things that you're going to anyway. Again, that's yourcreativepush.com/Amazon, and thank you for thinking of the show and for helping out. Your Creative Push, episode 227.
I think if you work really, really, really hard, and if you put your whole soul into it, you'll eventually get there where you're really, really happy with your work.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Yellena James. Yellena is an artist who uses pens, inks, markers, and acrylics to combine complex, abstract forms into dazzling images which take on lives of their own. Her colorful arrangements of organic shapes and tangled lines are at once floral and alien, organic and sci-fi. She has participated in shows around the United States and overseas, including solo exhibitions at Giant Robot, the Hijinks Gallery, and the Hijinks Gallery, and she has done illustration work for Anthropologie, Barrell, Relativity Media, and many others. Yellena, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. So I was wondering if you could start out by kind of giving us a brief artistic bio, sort of how you got to the point you are today in your artistic career.
Yes, I guess I'll try to give you a short version. So I was born in Sarajevo, Bosnia, and right now I live in Portland, Oregon, and it's really, really beautiful here. I'm surrounded by moss trees and waterfalls and mountains, and it's a really inspiring place to be in. Yeah, when I was little, I was always doing something creative. I was very interested in a creative process. I learned how to knit when I was really young, and I was always drawing something. My sister was always also creative, so we did kind of stuff together, so that was kind of fun. So when I was about 15, a war broke out in Sarajevo, and it was a tough time. You know, I was in puberty, I was a teenager, and it was really a lot to take in what was going on around me. And I wasn't able to go to school for about a year. And after about a year, I found out that there was an art school close by. And I went over there and I applied, and I got in. And I was really, really excited to be there. I mean, first of all, the art school, had electricity the whole time, which meant, we had heat during the winter, and there was music always over there. So it was a really, really nice place to be in. But the only thing I had to do was basically run by about 2-3 sniper alleys in order to get to school.
So the war is still going on at this point? No.
Well, yes. When I was going to school, yes, it was still on. But, after a year being kind of stuck in an apartment building, you kind of want to go out there, you want to go do something and not just kind of sit at home and, wait for something to hit you.
Right.
But the school was great. It was a small group of people, and basically one teacher who was really this amazing figurative painter, and he does really amazing paintings. So I was very inspired by him and by his work. And it was really nice. At the beginning, we did a lot of line drawings. And it was just basically we drew just with a pencil, and we did a lot of line work. So I basically studied a lot of art just doing simple line drawings. And I think that stuck with me, that I was able to kind of learn a lot about the form through just line and really kind of basics, like learn basics of drawing. And later on we did a lot of shading and everything else, and color. We studied that as well, but it was kind of intense art, learning. And I was very fortunate to be in that environment, even though everything outside was really hectic. But I had that kind of safe bubble when I was doing something really nice. I was was learning about art, and I was really inspired.
So in that way, like a lot of times we talk about on the show how when you create art, it's best to go to a sanctuary, to go to like a place where, it's just you and your art, where you don't have, if you have kids running around or just, the busyness of like social media or TVs on, and just to kind of like escape. So would you say that was like kind of
that was definitely it. I mean, everything that was happening outside was just turned off when I was in there. I was just focused on learning, on doing something proactive,
And would you find that, like, when you get back to your art, like today, it's like you can kind of find that place again?
Oh, yeah, I totally disappear. I mean, if I'm in the middle of something, sometimes it takes me a little bit to get into that groove, to kind of like, okay, I'm doing this. This is going well. I really disappear, like, mentally. I'm totally in whatever I'm doing, and it's very meditative for me. So it's kind of like therapy.
Absolutely, yeah. So from that point, when you're kind of in that art school, like how long did that school last, and then where did you go from there?
Well, I spent about a year over there, and after that, we were able to get out of Sarajevo because it wasn't, the war was still going on, but we were able to get out. And I eventually made my way to the States. My whole family moved to the United States, and we came here as refugees. Mm-hmm. And we came to Florida, which was quite a cultural shock.
Yeah.
Like going from Europe to Florida, it's like, oh my God, what is this place? Right. I was suddenly in a mouse land. We lived in Orlando.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but it was quite a cultural shock. I don't think I ever got used to Florida. I just kind of wanted to get out of Florida.
And then when did you get out of Florida?
Well, I went to school in Florida. I got my degree in graphic design and painting at UCF. So I took a lot of painting classes, graphic design classes. I thought I wanted to be a graphic designer. I thought I wanted a job when I get out of school, Mm-hmm. And I graduated, and then I did a lot of graphic design freelance work. But I just never liked it that much. I had a hard time with people telling me kind of, hey, can you make me a logo with green, red, and yellow or something like that? I was like, no. That's like, I can't do that. I can't put those three colors next to each other and make it work. It just doesn't work.
It's against what I believe.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So I just had a hard time, following through on, and it just turned into, people will tell you what they want, and, you don't have that much creative freedom. At least the work that I was doing as a freelancer. Not every freelance work is like that. But I wasn't happy with what I was doing, and eventually I moved to Oregon coast, and I moved to a really small town where my in-laws were living. We kind of wanted to have a fresh start on the West Coast, and I kind of started drawing a lot. I was just kind of focused on my artwork again. I started painting. I started drawing. And I didn't have a studio set up, so I did a lot of pen and ink work in my sketchbooks. And I really, really liked it. I was really intrigued by what I was getting. And then I found about Etsy. I posted my work on Etsy one day, and I didn't really think much of it. I was like, okay, I'll just put some prints online. I saw the prints were selling, and then it kind of took off. Like, I got noticed by some bloggers, and my work was shared online. I got really excited. I was like, okay, I'm selling some prints. I'm getting some good feedback. Like, this is happening, Mm-hmm. After that, I also got a couple of art exhibits. I think, people will find me on Etsy, and they're like, hey, you want to do a show in my gallery? And I eventually got a solo show at the Giant Robot in San Francisco, which was really awesome. So I started doing a lot of art shows, And then I started doing a lot of illustration gigs, but based on my artwork, which was really nice.
And all at this point, like once you started the Etsy, was that the style that you have now? Like that you had developed it at that point?
Yeah, so this happened, let's say, about 10 years ago. I had my Etsy shop about 10 years ago. So yes, I mean, it was a little bit different, but it was definitely headed in what I'm doing right now. But, I was still doing washes and pen work over watercolor washes. And I was doing floral elements and motifs, very organic drawings. I got a lot of illustration gigs off of that, and I was lucky enough to work with some really great brands.
And that, like the style that you have now and that you kind of developed then, how did that kind of develop? Like, how did that start? Was it always something that you've been doing since art school? Like this, like very...
No, I would say it kind of started because I was doing a lot of sketches in my sketchbook, like when I moved to the West Coast. And I was exploring, actually before that, I wanted to do like figurative painting. I was really into a figurative painting. And then with the sketchbook, I just kind of started exploring, floral elements, tangled lines, and different aspects, stuff that I wasn't into before. And I was really into doing very, very detailed and complex drawings. Somehow it was almost like I was trying to find some kind of a balance in some kind of chaos. But yeah, it looks pretty much like what it used to look like 10 years ago. Of course, it evolved. My artwork evolved. But you can still, if you would see stuff that I'm doing today and stuff that I did 10 years ago, you can still tell that it's the same person that did it. There's still some elements that I'm pulling from stuff that I did 10 years ago.
Right. Now, you mentioned that like once you started the Etsy and you started to get noticed by bloggers and by other people and commissions started to come in, did you do anything to like self-promote, or was it all kind of natural?
No, that was what was so interesting, is kind of like jobs would just get to me. And I would get invites from companies that would send an email. Hey, we're so-and-so. Would you like to collaborate on the surface pattern design or packaging design or a scarf or a teapot? I did a lot of different kind of projects. But yeah, I didn't, and I always I wondered about that. I was like, it felt like almost like somebody knew when I would finish one job, something else would come in. It felt really great like that. Things were just kind of coming in. And I think that happened kind of organically because my work was out there, and it was being shared and people would see it. And eventually, the right people saw it, like art directors, because I'm sure they were kind of checking out the blogs, the big blogs, and that's probably how they saw my work. Although I never asked, I should have maybe.
Yeah.
But I never asked, kind of like, hey, how did you find me? Like, how did you find me? So that's kind of interesting. But I was very fortunate that things would just, and it still happens. Like after 10 years, I still kind of get jobs. I don't do a lot of promoting, which is kind of interesting because I wonder what would happen if I would go out there and hunt for jobs, I don't know. But so far I'm very busy, and things are slowly coming in. Like right now, I'm working on painting surfboards for Nordstrom stores in California, for 2 stores, which is really, really exciting. And I've never done that before. And again, it was, I got an email. Hey, would you like to paint some surfboards for our store? I was like, yes, that sounds really fun. I'll do it.
So you'd say that it still kind of comes in organically?
Yes. Very much
so cool.
So. I hope it stays like this.
Right. Well, would you have any advice for people where it isn't coming in like that organically?
Yeah. Well, I guess I can say what worked for me is that I was out there. I put my work out there, Of course, first you have to create good work, and that's a big one. It's really good if you develop your own style, if you develop something that is very recognizable. So when people see it, they know it's you, They kind of recognize your work. But it's really important to share your work, get on Instagram, get on Facebook, get active with bloggers. Send your work to bloggers. Like if you like some bloggers, send them an email, say, hey, check out my work, or check out this new project that I did. It's very important to share it. I guess that's the way to promote it, put it out there, make sure people know about your work.
Exactly. Especially for people that are just starting to build an audience. Like, I think sometimes they might struggle with lack of confidence because they don't, they started putting their stuff on and the world didn't come running. But it really does take that a little bit of a grind to reach out to people, because these people want to find you, especially bloggers that are trying to find new art.
Yes, they need content. I mean, they want something fresh and exciting. So, there's definitely a lot of opportunities out there. There's ways to promote your work.
Yeah, and especially they not only do they want to find fresh work, but they want to be the one to kind of discover you as well.
Hey, I discovered this one. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So when it comes to like creating your pieces, what is that process like? And I also want to know, like, when do you come up with the titles for your pieces? Is that before, middle, or after?
After.
After, yeah.
Yeah, definitely after. Well, it's, I work kind of, and this may be odd, but I kind of start with no sketches. Like when I do my pieces for gallery shows or just when I'm drawing, I don't have any idea what this piece will look like. Like it's very intuitive for me. I basically start with one element and then I build upon it. And of course, the whole time I'm thinking about, I'm thinking about colors. I'm thinking about harmony and balancing everything. Thinking about where I'm going to put where. But it's kind of exciting that I don't have this, a special plan for each piece. It just kind of takes over. I just let it kind of grow and go where it needs to go. And it's the same when I decide to stop. There's just this feeling, okay, I think this is done. Sometimes it's hard to stop, but it's very like I just follow my instinct. I don't have any rules, but I think it comes from drawing so much, and I learned so much about art, and I had a really good education that I think that kind of happens naturally. It just becomes a second nature when you work. You get a good sense for color, for line, for form, and it just becomes very natural. So it's kind of hard to describe the process when I don't really think about this when I'm working, I let it take over.
Right, and that's a very special place that you're able to get to, and something that is kind of a struggle because it's like getting in that zone, like that sanctuary, like being able to take yourself to that place where you just feel kind of safe and you're able to just put yourself out there and to let go. And I think a lot of people try to impose too many like rules on themselves.
Yes, that can get things kind of complicated if you start thinking. Well, sometimes I get with the client work, it's a little different because they give you all these things. They say, okay, I want you to focus on a certain shape, certain colors, or they want you to work with a template. So you do have a lot of restrictions. You can't just go nuts.
Right.
Plus, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, I got to do really good because this is a paying gig. I have to deliver. I can't mess this up. Like, I have to get this right. So once you have that in your head, sometimes it gets a little hard to like get going, because you're still kind of not sure what you're doing. You don't know if they're going to like the direction that you're going. But eventually, you do get into that zone, but that initial push, it's sometimes a little hard. And this happens when I don't do artwork for a long time, I get back to it and then suddenly I'm kind of like, ooh.
Rusty.
I got it. What am I doing?
Right.
Where's this going?
Right. And like you said, that all comes from experience and comes from practice and doing it all the time to have that intuition to know.
Right. And just kind of let it happen. Like, let go of that internal dialogue that you have. Oh, is this going in the right direction? because, after you're doing something for a long time, you know you can get it done.
Right. Well, do you have any, aside from that creeping up eventually, and sometimes whenever, you've been off your game for a little while, do you have any other kind of resistances, things that kind of creep in to your art process that hold you back?
Well, sometimes it's just a matter of having way too many things to do, because I've been doing this for like 10 years, and being self-employed, I mean, it's definitely has its perks, but it can also be kind of challenging because you're not just creating art. There's all this other stuff that you have to do. You got to do marketing. You got to put it out there. You got to promote it. You got to take care of your orders. You got to take care of your emails. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So it's kind of challenging to take care of your schedule. And, I have giant to-do lists. I actually have a journal that's just like stuff to do. And if I don't have that list, I get kind of lost because there's a lot to do. And it can be challenging to kind of turn all that off and just get back to work and just focus on a piece that you're doing, because you constantly have something else on your mind, like new project or a deadline or something else going on.
And then how do you do that? Because I think that's one of the hardest things to do. For me, like getting things on my to-do list definitely helps to get it off of my brain. But in the back of my brain, I know how long that list is. And when you're talking about having a journal full of, a to-do list, how then do you shut that off? Yeah.
I physically make myself sit down, take a pen and a sketchbook or whatever I'm doing, just physically make my body go draw, go do what I have to do. Because I think if you start listening to the internal dialogue, you're not going to get through that resistance, So, sometimes I would tell myself, let's say, for example, I have to work on an exhibit and I have a lot of pieces that I have to complete. And somehow I just can't get myself to get to work. And then I would just tell myself, okay, you know what? I'm just going to sketch for about 10 minutes and, no pressure. There's no pressure here. Like just 10 minutes, I'm just going to draw and see what happens. And usually what happens, I actually continue drawing. I don't stop, So tricking your mind to kind of just do a little bit, because if you tell yourself, whoa, I have to make like 50 pieces for my art show or something like that, then that sounds really overwhelming. And your mind is going to resist that, like, whoa, that's too much. But I think focusing on a little bit. And then what happens, you realize that you actually really enjoy the process and you just kind of continue doing it.
Absolutely. For me, if I'm writing something, or especially something that has to do with the show, it's sometimes there's that feeling of like you see how big the project is that you have to kind of do. Yeah. So you just, like you said, if you trick yourself and you're like, all right, I'm just going to write, 200 words.
Yeah.
And then sometimes once you're on that 200th word, you've already like started writing other paragraphs and like you can't keep up with your ideas. So it really is just kind of putting your butt in the chair and starting.
Yeah. Yeah. Just do that initial push and then you'll totally be fine after that. But yeah, it's a little bit of a struggle, but it's so worth it. It's really worth it.
And then with all the things, like you said, being a full-time artist, and there's so much other stuff that goes with it, like so many deadlines, so many like emails, so many, you name it. So how do you balance the time then?
Well, I think I'm still learning, I tried different things, kind of like, I tried leaving time for emails in the evening and doing important stuff in the morning, because, you have more energy in the morning. So when you kind of do big stuff in the morning, you kind of feel like you had a productive day. And I think attacking the big stuff right off the bat is a good idea, because if you're leaving big projects, to do them later, then you kind of lose all this energy that you really needed. So I'm not sure if I have a formula for that, and everybody's different. But, kind of figure out what works. And I try to stay off, which is really, really hard, but I try to stay off of social media. I mean, I would post something on Instagram and then next thing I know, like an hour, looking at Instagram pictures, it can be inspiring, but you kind of have to balance when you do that stuff and when you do actual work. But, I don't have hours. I work all the time. Sometimes it's relaxing to work at night, which can be kind of troubling if you don't take time for yourself. So it's really, really important to take time off and, recharge, go for a hike or for a walk or something like that. Inspiration is everywhere.
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk about your book, Star, Branch, Spiral, Fan.
Yes.
So can you talk about that book, what it attempts to do, and kind of how that started?
Yes. Well, here's another project that started with the email from my editor saying, "Hey, we really like your work. Would you like to do a book with us?" Yeah. I know it's a repetitive thing with me, but that's how it works. So yeah, I got an email from my editor, and she had an idea for the book that was concentrated around 4 shapes: star, branch, spiral, and fan. We kind of communicated back and forth and figure out how to put the book together. It's book/sketchbook, which is really cool because it's full of exercises concentrated around these 4 shapes, and you can draw in it. And the paper is really nice. I tested it. It's really good for pens and pencils and color pencils. But it's kind of an exploration of these 4 shapes. And it's supposed to kind of help, artists and designers and students look at the nature in a little different way and notice these 4 shapes and see if you can use these 4 shapes in your own art and design.
And have these been shapes that you have used in your art?
Yes, definitely. I have some artwork in the book that I've done a long time ago. And when I was starting to work on the book, I was like, wait a minute, I've been using these shapes, but I wasn't really aware of it. Like I have a lot of fan shapes in my artwork.
That intuition taking over again.
Yeah. So I kind of made this big connection. I was like, wow, there's some stuff that I've been using already. So it totally fit the book. But it was really fun working on the book. And it was quite a project for me. I worked on it for about a year. And on and off, But and it was very challenging, and my editor said, you're gonna have to do some writing. And I was like, well, that's not my thing. Like I don't, that might be a little hard, but they were very helpful, and they were really nice with the whole process. And the book was put together, and I'm very pleased how it came out. And I'm hoping I'll have more to follow this one, because it was really, really, really fun to work on this.
Very cool. And we'll have that linked up then for people to check it out at yourcreativepush.com/Yellena. That's YELLENA. Yellena, it is time for the final push. This is where I ask you to reach through the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already really inspired today, and just give them your best words of advice and encouragement, and just really push them to pursue their own creative passions. All
right. Well, I think the big advice is just go out there and do the work that you always wanted to do. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till the weekend. Don't put it away, but just kind of start working on your artwork, and give it all you got, and don't stop learning. Look around, share it, put it out there, and I think great things will happen. I think if you work really, really, really hard, and if you put your whole soul into it, you'll eventually get there where you're really, really happy with your work. That would be it.
Very cool. Yeah. Put your whole soul into it. I love that. And I think that You kind of nailed it. It's not waiting until tomorrow or waiting until the weekend or waiting until that next time in your calendar that you have like a full day.
Right.
It's finding that little time throughout each day to get to it.
No excuses.
Absolutely, no excuses.
Don't listen to your excuses because they're lying to you and they're not worth listening to. You gotta follow your own heart.
They're smart excuses. Because
they're tricky.
Very tricky and sneaky, but don't listen to them.
No.
Yellena, thank you so much for coming on the show today and for giving us that push.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And you can find Yellena on our website, which is yellena.com. That's Yellena.com. On Instagram and Facebook, she is Yellena James. And as I said, you can find everything at today's show notes page at yourcreativepush.com/Yellena. Yellena, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my thanks again to Yellena for coming on the show. I want to go back to something she was talking about in the episode, about how some of the jobs that she gets come out of nowhere, seemingly. And I know how frustrating that can be for some of you to hear. And that's certainly not the approach that we kind of try to promote on this show, is the idea that jobs are just going to fall out of the air, out of nowhere. Followers are going to come from nowhere. If you build it, they will find you. But Yellena made an important qualifier there. The fact that she put herself out there first, and that's how people found her for potential work, and how those jobs seem to kind of come like magic. They come because her work is out there. So I want you to really ask yourself, am I putting myself out there? And I don't mean just putting your work on Instagram or other social media and just kind of going through that process of posting every other day or whatever your schedule is. I mean actually putting yourself out there, actually pushing yourself out there to potential bloggers, to other artists, to people that you want to work with, to galleries, actually working as your own agent and putting yourself out there as not just a public figure, but a public figure that wants something. And don't get me wrong, it's a hard thing to do, to put yourself out there on social media, to create your own art page. However it is that you're putting yourself out there into the world, that is a tough thing to do, something that we try to help make easier with this show. However, it's easy to become complacent with your schedule, posting the same time every day with the same hashtags to the same group of followers. And it's easy to fall back into those false hopes of, if you build it, they will come, that you had before you started posting. Just because you're posting on the internet, it doesn't mean that people are going to come flocking to find you. So it is still your job to keep pushing yourself out there past your safe sanctuary of followers that are super supportive of you, where you know that you're not going to get hurt. It is a scary world out there. And like Yellena was talking about in Sarajevo, sometimes you have to walk out the door into the world, even if it is kind of scary and you don't know what's around the corner. So really be honest with yourself and ask yourself, am I scared when I post stuff up there? Am I scared to reach out to certain people? You might already know in your mind the places that you eventually want to get to, the places that you eventually want to work for, the people that you want to collaborate with. Whatever it is, you might already know where you're supposed to be. So why not get there this weekend? Why not send out some emails? Why not push yourself further than you've ever pushed yourself before? That safe sanctuary is always going to be there for you, but I'm telling you, it's okay to take a step out the door, to make yourself uncomfortable a little bit. Think of creative ways that you can put yourself out there and get to it this weekend. On Monday's show, we have Tyler Thrasher. Tyler is a kind of Renaissance guy, but most notably, he collects found objects and deceased creatures and then grows these crystal clusters on them, and they are beautiful, they are surreal, they're awesome. Aside from that, he's also an artist, he's a music producer, and he is a photographer, amongst many other things. And we had a really fascinating conversation about what it is to be a creative person that does a lot of different things, that kind of scratches any kind of itch that you get. You can find his work on his website, which is tylerthrasher.com. And we'll have links on today's show notes page at yourcreativepush.com/227 to find out all of his other stuff that he does, because he's in a lot of places. And we'll also have all the notes from today's episode with Yellena. But that is all I've got for you today. Hopefully you were inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done. Get uncomfortable, put yourself out there, and we will see you on Monday if you need the push. Again, I love you all, and we will see you then. Bye. Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.